So if I understand the question correctly, the question is, what is the advantage of basically do this type of plumbing compared to a different kind of plumbing? I think that the main concern that I have is that I have a certain constraint. I mean, if I decide to create the main window, to create the history window, this code, these two lines of code, they have to execute on the event dispatch thread. Of course, the way for me to make them execute on the event dispatch thread, I can use this main method inside view main and do it through invoke later, right there, right? So this is the way for me to make sure that it happens at this stage, right? But immediately, the entire use case can be controlled through the controller, right? So we have this controller, and so the controller, basically, remember, in my case, the controller, if you think about it, right now, at least the way I have it right now, nobody except main view and history view will be able to talk to the controller. No one, right? There's no background thread. There's no any kind of animation. I don't have much sophistication in this NYR data class that would post periodic updates to the controller. I don't have none of it. So my expectation is that once everything is created, then only through this user interface the controller can be approached by the user, right? And so therefore, I made this decision to say that let me just create those the three of these objects, right? The three of these objects: the main view, the history view, and the controller view, right? Controller class instance, and do this all together in one spot. And the advantage of this is that then, if I do this, the constructor here, the constructor for the controller class, can conveniently take two of these parameters. It can take two of these parameters and instantly grab the hold of the two reference to the two of the windows that it definitely needs to be able to talk to. However, I'm not completely done here just yet. Unfortunately, right now the windows are created, but once created, they have no knowledge about the controller. That needs to change, okay? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this controller, and I'm going to go to both of my windows, right? Scroll up, and just, of course, these are classes generated by NetBeans, but I can keep adding my own of variables and methods to it. So I'll just say private controller NYR controller. So the window will have the controller, access to the controller. And similarly, right, we can copy and paste this into the history view and do exactly the same thing. Scroll up to the top of the view history and add the private controller reference to that second class as well. So now the two windows will have access to the controller. Then, of course, the controller has to be populated. This is like the way it's created. It's just going to be a null reference. So the way I'm going to do this is by generating the setter methods, right? So I can say view history, insert code, right? And we can say the setter, and the setter is going to be for the controller. And we just say generate, so that creates a method that says set controller. It's a public method, And now that I've done it here, I can just copy and paste it to main and add this setter right here as well. So both windows have now methods, the setter methods, which will set a specific controller. Because I have this like chicken and egg problem, right? I need to create two windows, and only then I need to create the controllers. But at the same time, Windows do need the access to the controller. So I'm not done. I'm not completely done here in my view main. As I try to do this high-level plumbing, the next thing for me is to say view main, right? View main dot set. Actually, I'm sorry. There's one of my concerns is that the window is about to be visible after the constructor executes. So I'm just going to keep this as simple as this, but inside the controller constructor, controller NYR, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, before I make main view visible, I'm going to say view main dot set controller, right? Set controller, and pass this as a controller, right? Because this is the reference to the controller. I am inside the controller constructor, so I can tell main view, hey, your controller should be me, right? And that's that. And likewise, inside the controller, I can say that view history, which is also created but not made visible. It's already in memory. Set controller this. So both, right? So this completes the plumbing, right? So we have two tasks to accomplish. First, we need to create all classes, like create objects of all classes, number one. Number two, we need to make the plumbing, so that the plumbing, the connections, the association between the objects looks like this, so that the windows can talk to the controller this way, and the controller can talk to the windows. And what's remaining is that we still need to create a business object, that New Year resolution data object, right? So why don't we give this responsibility to the controller constructor, right? So just a quick overview before we make any more changes. So once again, the main application method does some high-level initialization and displays the main window. It makes sense. It just says view main, do your thing, whatever is needed for you to become visible. So the view main gets invoked. All that we do is create the two windows that we need to create for this specific use case, then create the controller and give controller constructor the references to the two of these windows. Then the rest of the work is done inside the controller constructor. Controller constructor takes two of these window references and remembers them. And likewise, we modified view main and view history, so they have a setter and a reference to the controller, and we pass the reference to the controller to both of these windows. And then we say, okay, at the end of the day, so far, we can make the main window visible. Right? So just let's just run this very quickly, and it's not very interesting because the window gets created and we can just close it. The history window is never made visible, but we assume it's somewhere in memory, right? And so to complete what we were planning to do, the final thing that we need to do here, perhaps we can add another private attribute to the controller class, which refers to CNYR data, right? So there will be CNYR data, and we're going to name it NYR data, right? So this NYR data can be used by us to say the data class should be created as new CNYR data. Okay, just create an object, right? Just create an object, so we have this object. Obviously, I think at this point, my attention should switch to the data aspect. Like, we've spent some time talking about the plumbing and organization of the controller and Windows. Now, this time, how about the data, right? So remember, so let's just maybe save the segment and start a new one.